it's cake time. Guys, I don't have any cardboard cake boards, so I am just frosting my cake right on my cake stand, which is on my turntable. Makes it a little bit higher. If you're tall, this is a great way to just frost your cakes, period, because you're gonna be a little bit more eye level and you don't have to crouch down as much. But this is totally doable. But first, this is my mint chocolate chip cake. This one I did a few years ago. I want to say it was about 3 years old. I've since created the grasshopper pie cake, and that one has got, it's so good. It's got like a mint chocolate cookie crust on the bottom, mint chocolate cakes. There's like cream cheese whipped cookie filling, and then your mint frosting, so it's a little bit more decadent and intense. This one, on the other hand, it's got that great mint chocolate chip flavor to it, but there's not as many steps. You're just making the cake layers, you're making the frosting, you're adding some mini chocolate chips to it. Now, you're gonna wanna be a mint lover to love this cake. I had a best friend in high school. She knows who she is. She hates, always has, hated mint. I mean, she was the one who brought cinnamon flavored toothpaste to the sleepovers. And cinnamon gum. She would never do mint. To this day, she still doesn't do it. So if that's you, this cake isn't for you. Anyone else though, you're gonna love this cake. Rich dark chocolate cake layers, and we've got our mint frosting. I'm going to do the outside of this cake in an ombre. So I'm gonna tint my frostings and show you how to do that in this IGTV today. All right, so I've divided my frosting and not equally actually. So there's one that has a little bit more because I'm also gonna use this one for in between the two layers. And then the smallest amount is the one that I'm gonna put at the bottom of the cake because you're not gonna have as much of that. And same for like the middle color, and then you're gonna want a little bit more for that top color, your lightest color, because it's also going on the top of your cake. So I'm gonna start though with, what green do I have? Forest green. So let's take a look at this color. I also grabbed avocado and electric green just to kind of mix and play around with my colors. So I'm actually using toothpicks to gather my color because I don't ever want to get too much, and I feel like sometimes if you just squeeze it, you're gonna all of a sudden start with way too much. And so I just use a toothpick to get the first like lightest color. And I think this forest green, these were the only greens I had, is gonna be a little bit dark. So we're gonna add some electric green to it. I can just kind of tell already it's got a little bit of blue to it. And so we want that good, we want it to look like the ice cream, the mint chocolate chip ice cream. So I'm adding a little bit of electric green, and we'll see how this looks. So we're gonna get a dark, a medium color, and then a light color as well. And what I like to do is do the dark color, and then I add it to my other batches. So a little bit more here, a little bit less for the lightest color, and play around with that. All right, so we've got some of that forest green mixed with the electric green. How great is that color? Feels very mint chocolate chip ice cream to me. I then just took a little spoonful of it and mixed it with like my small batch of frosting, because that will be the middle color. We're not gonna need a lot of that one, so kind of light. And then I'm gonna take from this batch again and just put one little scoop into this one, and we're gonna mix it, and we'll go even lighter than that middle one. So we'll have like bottom, middle, and then our top, and we can fill with a couple of them because we've got 2 layers. All right, so we've got it on the cake stand, nice and high. Tools, I've got my offset icing spatula, I've got my straight icing spatula, and then just my straight scraper. I'm gonna use the acrylic disc today. You know those tools can be found over on shop.cakebycourtney.com. And let's get to it. I'm gonna add some of my darker color here so that when you cut into the cake, you also kind of have the ombre. So we're gonna have a lighter color on the next layer. But this is only about 3/4 cup of the frosting. You don't wanna use too much where you're using all of it. And I'm just pushing this frosting out, but keeping this totally straight the whole time. All right, gotta get eye level, right? Always make sure it looks nice and even as we go across the cake there. Second layer goes top side up again. I like putting the bottom down on the plate here. It's gonna be easier to like serve the cake in case you've ever leveled it. You don't wanna put the like crumbs on the bottom because they're gonna get stuck. Much easier, so you'll have a harder, oh, you guys, I on my chocolate chips. Nuts. Hold on just a second. That's like a huge step. Redo, don't worry. We're gonna peel it off. It happens to the best of us. Let's grab our chocolate chips. All right, don't worry, it's saved. We got our mini chocolate chips in there. I would say about a half cup of the mini chocolate chips, and just kind of worked them into the frosting so they weren't just right on top. Okay, now we're ready for our next layer. And I'm just gonna mix some of my medium color and some of my really light color. And we'll start to work this in and add our chocolate chips as well and just kind of mix it as we go, which is what I just did. So I would say about a half cup. So that's like a fourth, and here's a half. I love the chocolate chips in here. So we'll just work that together as we frost. Or you can mix it beforehand if you're a little bit more prepared and on top of it than I am at this moment. Okay, now you can kind of see this last one goes top side down. That's because we've got our smoothest side of the cake on the top and a better edge right here to work with as well. And now we're just gonna do a simple crumb coat. So you can take any of your colors to do this, and we're just gonna get a thin layer of frosting. Look, our crumbs, they may come up, and my cake is chilled and everything, but we'll still probably get some crumbs in this crumb coat. But when we freeze it for about 10 to 15 minutes, our outer coat of frosting, this thin layer of frosting, really just traps those crumbs in to the frozen crumb coat. And then we can go over the entire thing with our final coat of frosting and not worry about the crumbs getting in our way. Okay, so the crumb coat has been frozen for about 10, 15 minutes. I gotta get eye level, make sure my acrylic disc looks nice and straight. And I'm gonna start, and I'm holding it on the high side. You guys can see tutorials for the acrylic disc and my highlights in IGTV and over on shop.cakebycourtney. So, but I am going to just make sure that that looks nice and level. And I'm gonna do my ombre look just with my offset icing or my straight icing spatula along the sides. And I like doing this way so it blends a little bit more naturally and doesn't have like the lines. I feel like the piping bags are great because you get this great like sharp line as you're piping, and you can do your dark, your medium, your light. But I want it to kind of all blend together. So I've gone around the entire top of the cake to hold in that acrylic disc. We don't want it moving around. So I've done my lightest color, which I'll also put on the top here. Now I'm gonna go to my medium color, and I'm just going to kind of let it overlap a little bit with my light color. And I think it's gonna blend really, really nicely. The colors are looking so good. And it can just kind of be a little bit messy. I think I'll make the bottom layer kind of a little bit thicker with that darker color, and then add some chocolate chips, kind of fading from the bottom to the top as well. Just make sure you get like a good, even coat of frosting. Even though we're just patching it in like this, you know, try before we actually scrape to make sure the sides look pretty. Now I'm ready for my darkest color, which I'm just gonna add. Still using that straight icing spatula, fill that in. The board's gonna get kind of messy. That's so easy to clean up once the cake is frozen. You can just kind of run a knife around the edge and clean it up. I love the green on top of this black. This would actually make like such a cute Halloween cake too. You wouldn't really need to do much to it with the green and the black. You could add some like cute witches hats on top or something with just like your green ombre and the black cake stand. The cake stand is from Orson Gigi. I love these cake stands. It's got a 10-inch plate on the top of it. Okay, so we kind of start to blend even with our icing spatula as I'm evening out, but I think I'm ready to scrape and kind of see where I need to fill in. So the tricky part is that this cake stand has a little bit of a lip, but we'll still make this work. You'll just see my scrapers on a slight angle, which it usually isn't. But the key is to just always make sure that scraper looks straight, whether it's touching the entire cake or not. We'll start to even out the frosting. All right, so one time around, and you can really see like the bottom half of my cake needs some more. And now it's just kind of like a spackle job is what we're gonna do. So we'll just patch in these areas that aren't quite thick enough. and can just go overlap all the colors still. I'm not worried about that. They're gonna blend really well. I love it. Make sure your scraper is clean every time you go around the cake, so no dry frosting gets on it. And now we're just gonna scrape a few times to just start to even out this frosting. Kind of makes an awful sound. Eek. Next time maybe I should be better prepared with my cake boards. But this is working. It's gonna work. So always keep your eye on the scraper. Just make sure that looks straight. Should be touching the top of the disc, and then you're just making sure that it's straight all the way down. There you have it. Look at that ombre, okay? Really, really subtle. And that's why I like when we're dyeing our frosting and tinting it, start with a really dark color and then use that color to help tint the other two colors that you're using. So it becomes really subtle and it doesn't feel so much like a stripe. We have another tutorial for that. So now I'm thinking, and maybe what I'll do is try it out on the back side of my cake. Remember, find your good side, call it good. But I was thinking too of bringing up my mini chocolate chips as like in an ombre, so that it's kind of heavier down here, and then we speckle them up towards the top of the cake. But we want to add any sprinkles or chocolate chips while our frosting is wet on the side. So then we'll freeze the whole thing for another like 15 minutes and cut the acrylic disc off the top. So I decided against the ombre chocolate chips. It wasn't quite working. I tried it out over here on the back of my cake. That's why it's good to have the back of your cake. You never need to see that side. You can kind of play around with whatever technique you're doing. So I just decided to take the mini chocolate chips and scatter them on. It's been frozen for a little bit. So now what I'm gonna do, and again, start like at the back of your cake, is take your knife and just run it around the edge, right underneath the acrylic disc. And this is how we're gonna get that awesome sharp edge on our cake. And then just kind of always hold it too so it doesn't just pop up and away. But look at that. Okay, now I can fill it in. I'm good. So I'm just gonna take this frosting on top and just work it towards my edges and kind of just blend it in lightly. But this is now gonna even out the top from where the acrylic disc was sitting. And when we, I held my high side. Now I've got a little bit more to fill in on that lower side. Just make sure you keep that center part nice and level. Just gonna blend this into the side, and then I'll add more chocolate chips, and you guys, it's done. How easy was that ombre? There you have it. It's my mint chocolate cake, chocolate chip cake. Hey, come here. And we've got the ombre frosting. Hopefully that tutorial was really helpful for you so you could see how that's done. Let's take pictures and dig in, yes? See you guys next